Hi, here we are with Landlord's Question Time. We're specifically talking about the Tenant Fees Act 2019. I'm Heather.
And I'm James.
And my third question to James is, what are landlords allowed to charge for from the 1st of June 2019 when the Tenant Fees Act comes into fruition?
Yep, that's a very popular question that I'm asked daily, as there is so much information involved with this piece of legislation that I am going to refer to the specific wording so that everyone is clear. They're classed as permitted payments, and it's been very specific, the legislation about what these payments are allowed to be from the 1st of June. It's so specific that they've listed in these payments as rent is a permitted payment, a refundable tenancy deposit, which is now going to be capped at 5 weeks for rent that's up to 50,000, and if the rent exceeds 50,000, you can take 6 weeks. This is a security deposit that is irrelevant if it's furnished or unfurnished. It's 5 weeks or 6 weeks.
That's a big change, isn't it? That is a big change. Yeah. Because previous to this act, landlords have more or less said, well, I want 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 8 weeks. If I've got a pet, I want more deposit. So this is a big change away from the
from the current requirements and legislation, and this is from the 1st of June. So there's no you can't deviate away from. It's 5 weeks if the rent's up to 50,000 per annum, or 6 weeks over. You're allowed to take a refundable home deposit to reserve the property if landlords choose to do that, and that's capped at 1 week's rent.
So let's just make a distinction there, because the holding deposit is not the same as the tenancy deposit.
The security
and
deposit,
we don't want people to get confused about what they're paying for, because that word deposit is in both those phrases, isn't it? And it could confuse people. So holding deposit is where they can
reserve the property.
Right, and the security deposit or tenancy deposit.
Well, the 5 week security deposit is the one that goes in, that has to be in a secured deposit scheme. The home deposit is not part of that scheme. It would normally go towards the first month's rent, but that does confuse people, and it's probably a wrong use of words really when they thought about this. It is going to confuse people. Another permitted payment is you can charge if there's a variation to the contract once the tenancy started, but they have capped that a landlord or a letting agent can only charge £50 including VAT. They go on to say that the agent could charge reasonable costs if they are higher, but they'd have to be evidenced. So my understanding of that is that it's £50 including VAT if there's a variation to the contract. But if you are instructing a third party to do like an inventory and they are charging you more than that capped rate, as long as you can evidence that the invoice you got from that third party exceeded that would be deemed reasonable. What you can't do, a landlord or a letting agent, you can't charge for your time for doing that work. You can only charge the pure costs.
I mean, we had an interesting question yesterday from a landlord who said, well, he gets his tenants to pay extra for gardening.
Yes. Yep.
What will happen in these circumstances?
I mean, from the 1st of June, that wouldn't be allowed. You can't add on other services as a payment. If it's not a permitted payment, and gardening, window cleaning, chimney sweeping is not listed. It's
not on your list, is it?
It's not on the list. So my advice is every time a landlord or a letting agent thinks, oh, can we add this as an additional service? If it's not listed, you can't. So what landlords need to do in that situation, if they want, they could still employ the services of their own gardener, but they would need to advertise the property at the rent that includes that cost, not separating out what the gardening costs are versus the rent, and then the landlord just pays the gardener's bill as normally. But no, from the 1st of June, you couldn't add those additional costs. Another permitted payment is if there's going to be a surrender of the tenancy, the landlord's able to charge the tenant the cost for reletting the property and all of the rent up until a new tenant is found. There is default fees if there is lost keys or a security device. If there's a late payment of rent, which is more than 14 days overdue, and that is capped at 3% above the England base rate. So they are the only default fees a landlord or letting agent can charge. And you can charge for the utility bills, i.e. gas, water, electricity, as part of a permitted payment. And just to recap, if it's not on this list, it's banned.
It's a no-go.
No.
Do you think over time these permitted payments, once the government has got feedback from, letting agents and maybe ALA and all the other trade bodies, that perhaps they will extend this, the permitted payments? Or
I don't think so. No. I think when this went through Parliament, there was a cross-party agreement across all of our political parties that supported this piece of legislation, and it's driven from making it more affordable and fairer for the tenants. That's where this is coming from, and it's shifting the burden from the tenant to the landlord.
And it's far more transparent as well, isn't it?
Yes.
For the tenants. I mean, if you're a tenant and you're going in for the first time renting and you're presented with a couple of sheets of paper with all these charges on, you get completely and utterly lost.
That's right.
So we can understand from, a tenant's perspective, it's much simpler, but equally we can understand there is a potential extra burden on our landlords.
Yes. I mean, there is that. And just to be clear, that there is the transition period where if someone is already in tenancy up until the 31st of May 2020, they are still subject to their contract. It's just new tenancies or renewals from the 1st of June 19.
That's a very important point.
Yeah.
Can you repeat that for our landlords, please, James?
So for tenants and landlords, if you're in tenancy currently that started before the 1st of June 2019, the terms of your tenancy stand through until the 31st of May 2020. If between now and then it goes into a renewal, then it's technically a new tenancy, and you can't charge any payments or fees unless they are permitted payments.
Okay, so 2 dates to ring round in your calendars.
Yeah, and that's
this is the 1st of June 2019 and the 31st of May 2020.
Yeah, they're the key dates.
Lovely. Yeah. Thank you, James.